What Lonzo Thinks is a wide-ranging discussion where I talk about everything from music, movies, sports, politics, religion, current events, pop culture. You name it, I'm talking about it, whether you like it or not. Alright, this is my review of PRiNCE, Under the Cherry Moon, the movie. Yes, it was released on July 4th, 1986, to much fanfare. When you release a movie in July, on the 4th of July, you really have big expectations. I mean, that's a big film. That's a big slate, especially nowadays. Those dates are reserved for the big blockbuster films. So back in 1986, it followed Purple Rain, which of course was a huge hit, and PRiNCE was at the apex of his superstardom at the time. So the film was widely anticipated. And I was one of the folks who was anticipating it as well. Like I said, it was released with much fanfare. Now, the film was directed by PRiNCE. A lot of folks don't know that. But yeah, it was directed by PRiNCE. It was initially slated to be directed by Mary Lambert. Now, Mary Lambert was a music video director who did a lot of music videos for stars like Madonna and Janet Jackson, and she was really popular at the time as an up-and-coming director, but she left the project, i.e. was fired from the project after creative differences with PRiNCE. And the film was written by Becky Johnston, and I don't know much about Becky Johnston. I don't know if she wrote anything else. I have to do some research on her, but she actually wrote the screenplay. Now, the film is set in France. What the era, dates, we really don't know, because that's one of the things I like about this film is that it really is not, you can't pin it down into a certain era. If you really watch the film, it could be set in the 1920s or it could be set in the 1980s. And I think that was obviously that was intentional, and I liked that aesthetic feel that it gave to the overall movie. And also it was shot in black and white, which definitely makes it feel like an older type of film. The film centers on PRiNCE, of course. He plays a gigolo in the south of France by the name of Christopher Tracy. He, along with his best friend, sidekick, comic foil, aka Buddy, by the name of Tricky, played by Jerome Benton of the time, plays his roommate, friend, pal, buddy, pimp. I don't know what he really is, but he was basically PRiNCE's foil in this movie. Also, the film marks the feature film debut of Kristen Scott Thomas, who plays Mary Sharon in the film. Now, Kristen Scott Thomas would go on to incredible fame and fortune and notoriety, and she was actually nominated for an Oscar for her work in The English Patient. So obviously she's a very talented actress, and this was her very first film. Also, one of the supporting actors in the film was Steven Berkoff as the bad guy, aka Mary Sharon's father, Isaac Sharon, in the film. And I just like Steven Berkoff. Whenever I see him in anything, I always kind of take notice. He's a good character actor. He's good at playing villains. So I think he was very well cast in the role of Isaac. It was a thankless role. He really didn't do much, but just when you know Steven Berkoff is in a film, you know he's going to play a bad guy, and he's going to really sink his teeth into the role, no matter how big or small that role is. So I really appreciated his presence in the film. So like I said, it's set in the south of France during a nondescript time, and PRiNCE and Tricky play gigolos who basically seduce rich, wealthy women, white women, it appears, in France. And that's how they make their living. PRiNCE does the loving, and I guess Tricky does the collecting, and they live together, and they just kind of just hang out and have fun in the south of France. And it appears like when the film opens, PRiNCE, he actually plays piano in a bar, and through his musical talent, he seduces women at the bar by giving them sexy, seductive looks. And in the opening of the film, which was really well shot, and I really like the opening sequence of the film, the title sequence, as he is playing the instrumental, the music for the theme song Under the Cherry Moon. He's playing the piano and actually seducing with his eyes an older lady, obviously a wealthy white lady. And Tricky is kind of egging him on and writing him little notes on napkins, telling him what to do, kind of directing him how he should seduce her with his eyes and facial gyrations. And PRiNCE, any PRiNCE fan knows that he's a very visual person. He always was very visual. He could emote a lot through his facial expressions. So he was really good in this particular scene at emoting those seductive looks to this lady. And I think Siskel and Ebert said it best. He reminded them of the old silent film star Rudolph Valentino, and that's who he reminded me of as well. If this was a silent movie, it would have been great because of the facial expressions that PRiNCE is able to deliver. So I don't know if Mary Lambert actually shot this opening sequence or if PRiNCE shot it, but it was very well done, and it actually engaged me in the film into wanting to watch more of it. So it was a very nice opening to it. And PRiNCE and Tricky, that's what they do, and apparently they're struggling to make ends meet because as we move forward into the next scene of the film, they are being harassed by their landlord, who happens to be a beautiful 20-something-year-old white girl who happened to be the landlord, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. I think which is a reason to have a sexy white model in the film. But apparently they are behind on rent, and she's threatening to throw them out, so they really have to come up with some big money fast. So looking through the newspaper, I guess they look through the society pages and try to find out who their next target is going to be. And they happen across Mary Sharon, who is an heiress, who on her 21st birthday stands to inherit like $100 million or something from her famous wealthy father, Isaac Sharon. So they actually decide to crash her birthday party on the French Riviera. And off we go into the story. And there's really not much to the plot. It's a romantic comedy drama, and it hits all the familiar beats of any romantic comedy drama you've ever seen in your life. There's nothing new or different or groundbreaking about it. They go to the party. PRiNCE and Mary Sharon's eyes lock. They goes quiet, and they focus on each other, and they become fascinated with one another, and a romance blossoms. At first, he's trying to take her for her money, but eventually he falls in love for her, and he sees the error of his ways and decides to change his ways, and end the story. So there's not really a whole lot to the plot. Now, the one different thing about it is that the relationship between PRiNCE, his name is Christopher in the film, of course, and Mary Sharon is that their courtship is very contentious. She plays like she doesn't like him, and obviously he plays like he does not like her. And their banter between one another is pretty engaging. I like the way that they communicated. There was a lot of verbal jousting between the two, with Tricky kind of playing the mediator between them. But you can tell there is a sexual attraction between the two. And I like the fact that they didn't just, the story doesn't allow them to just hit the normal beats of a relationship. It's the contention that really engages, I think, the audience and make them want to either see these two get together or that they never get together. And that's one of the elements about the film that I liked. And if PRiNCE has something to do with that as far as directing, I say good job. Not bad at all. Now, as far as the overall plot, it doesn't really serve much because this film is kind of disjointed. And I think you can tell that they changed directors at some point, didn't go back and reshoot, I guess, the stuff that Mary Lambert had already shot, because the tone of the film really kind of changes about a third of the way through, and it focuses more on the comedy aspect of it versus it being, a more romantic type film. It's not a 50-50 rom-com. It's more like a 2080, more comedy than romance. And as a comedic actor, PRiNCe, he's passable. I didn't really buy him as being someone as I guess, knowing PRiNCE the artist and knowing how reclusive he was and how unfriendly he was as an artist. We don't see him. I had a hard time buying him as being this friendly, affable guy in the film. So that kind of took me out of it as well. But overall, the story just does not hold up. It does not hold its tone throughout. And once again, it's pretty obvious that there were some major changes to the tone and direction with the switch of the directors. Now, as Mary Sharon and PRiNCE become more involved and begin to fall in love, Tricky starts to feel kind of slighted because he's more about the money, and he sees that Christopher is falling in love with her, so that brings a conflict between he and Christopher as well. Now, as far as Kristen Scott Thomas's performance in the film, for this to be her first film, it wasn't a great performance, but you can see that she had some talent. She wasn't a bad actress. She was just I think she was a good actress in a bad film. She did what she could with the material that she had. But as a feature film debut, I'm pretty sure she doesn't put that on her resume and say, hey, look at this as a sample of what I can do. And now, another backstory to the film is that actually PRiNCE's girlfriend at the time, Susanna Melvoin, who is the twin sister of Wendy Melvoin, of course, of Wendy and Lisa, Wendy being the lead guitarist for The Revolution. She's her twin sister, and she was PRiNCE's girlfriend at the time. And she was actually cast as the lead role, Mary Sharon, along with PRiNCE. But it turned out she couldn't act, so they had to let her go. And that's how Kristen Scott Thomas got the role. But overall, her performance in the film is passable, but I don't think it's her fault. It's more the script's fault, and the overall tone of the film really doesn't give a whole lot to do other than be spoiled and petulant and kind of dim-witted. It's kind of hard buying her as this this wealthy heiress who can be that dumb and dim-witted. But I guess and then you look at somebody like Paris Hilton and say, okay, I get it. But I just didn't buy her in that particular vein of the film. And of course, like I said, it's a romantic comedy with that has some drama interspersed as well. So the drama is Isaac trying to keep the two of them apart, PRiNCE gaining a conscience and not wanting to rip the girl off, like he's conned so many other women in his past. He falls in love with her. He really wants to be with her, and they both decide to run away. Her father Isaac accuses him of trying to kidnap her, and they go after PRiNCE, Tricky, and Mary Sharon, and at the end they shoot him and kill him. They shoot PRiNCE as he tries to go back to Mary because they had her stashed in a cave, and to try to get away, they shoot him in the back and kill him. Boo hoo hoo. When I saw this film as a teenager, it hurt me to see PRiNCE die on screen. It did. I felt sad. It was a sad ending to the film, and it affected me a little bit. It made it kind of hard for me to hold the tears in, because Sometimes It Snows in April actually played at the end of the film, and of course, that's a very sad song. But overall, this film is just not that effectual at all. I will say one other thing about the chemistry between the two leads, PRiNCE and Mary Sharon, or PRiNCE and Kristen Scott Thomas. I didn't really buy them as a couple, and the love scenes in the film were very cheesy. They never had sex in the film. They kissed a lot, and the way PRiNCE kisses really didn't fit the way that Kristen kisses. And it appears to me, and if you watch the film, pay attention to their kissing scenes. It appears that PRiNCE is more into it than she is. I think he tries to French kiss her a lot, but she doesn't French kiss him back, if that makes any sense. like her mouth is closed and his mouth is open. It's like he's trying to force his tongue into her mouth. It felt kind of grimy, kind of, I don't know. It made me feel kind of uneasy watching them kiss, because I don't think she was really into it. Maybe he had bad breath or something. I don't know. Or needed dental work. I don't know. But if you ever watch the film, pay attention to those scenes and tell me if I'm wrong. But it feels like he was more into it than she was, and that really kind of came through on film. And like I said, I didn't buy their relationship anyway, but that really took me out of it as well. So, Under the Cherry Moon. I'm a PRiNCE fan. I love his music, but I got to be objective. It's not a good movie, and I think only PRiNCE fans are going to watch this film. It's not something that anyone's going to flock to. If you see it on late night television on one of the pay channels or whatever, I doubt you're going to stop and watch it. I watch it from time to time, but it's not a go-to film for me either. And as a follow-up to Purple Rain, it was a terrible follow-up to a massive hit like that. I know a lot of folks probably wanted to see a sequel to Purple Rain. I didn't. But I did want to see PRiNCE in a different role, a role different than this. But him, with his personality, it's hard to see him in a lot of different roles, though, because you're not going to buy him as an actor. And you wouldn't buy him playing a detective or something, or athlete or something, you know. So his film career was limited at best anyway. So, and this was his next to last role in a film. He, of course, Graffiti Bridge was de facto sequel to Purple Rain, but I'll save my thoughts on that for another day. But as an actor, PRiNCE has charisma, given the right direction and with the right type of material. And Under the Cherry Moon was not the right type of material for PRiNCE at this stage of his career. I think it hurt his career more than help it. It kind of made him a bit of a joke, because the film it grossed only $10 million at the box office. The album did well. The album sold 2 million copies or so, and of course had a #1 hit with Kiss and everything. But I think folks remember that Kiss and obviously the soundtrack more than actually remember the film itself. So I don't recommend it to anyone but hardcore fans. If you're trying to get into PRiNCE, don't use this to get into PRiNCE. Get into him first, and then watch this film as a point of reference. Otherwise, you'll be like, what the hell? Other than that, that's all I got to say about Under the Cherry Moon. Not much of a film. It's good to see PRiNCE on screen, though. So I do watch it. Other than that, leave it alone. This is what Lonzo thinks. Bye.